What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Sentinels of Liberty podcast tonight. It's not going to be a super long episode, but there's a couple things that I feel are worth the time and attention this evening. We're going to be going over just a few updates as it pertains to the Russia-Ukraine thing. We're going to take a look at Gaza and all the things that are happening there, but also we are going to kind of take a look at the things that are happening with the administration right now and seeing kind of the picture that that's going to paint for the future. And I'm here to tell you, for as hopeful as I am, that things will get better eventually and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I think we're in for a pretty rough ride. All of that being said, a little bit of housekeeping this Saturday. I am looking to have Scott Horton on, hopefully. So I'm hoping everything's going to work out the way that it needs to. And hopefully we can finally make this episode happen. So tune in on Saturday at 1700 Central Time to see me and Scott Horton finally be able to chew the fat on a variety of different subjects and hopefully be able to get his wisdom, his insight, and his perspective on a few different issues that I think are right up his alley and are issues that I think you guys and gals actually will care about. As far as that housekeeping goes, that's pretty much everything I have. I'm still working on some media assets and trying to get some things figured out. It's been kind of rough. I still work for a living, so I'm not as fancy as some of these high-speed YouTubers, so just bear with me. Stay strapped in. And hopefully things will continue just to get better with each episode that comes. But you guys aren't here to hear about all of the things that I'm trying to improve on. You're here for some of the updates. So let's kind of get into it. So as of recently, from what I've been able to see, I had talked about, I think it was either last episode or the episode before, about the potential for Pokrovsk in Ukraine to be taken. And I think what we're starting to see with the frontline movements of the Russian forces, we're starting to see some pretty good progression. And right now it looks like that Pokrovsk is starting to see that beginning of that encirclement. And what we're starting to see is this creation of a cauldron, which the Russians typically do whenever they're starting to prime up to get ready to take a city. A lot of people are going to come out and say like Pokrovsk isn't significant, but it really is one of the last few remaining, if not one of the remaining significant areas, simply because it is another one of those really, how would I say, prominent kind of strongholds. It's had a very strong presence since the very beginning in 2022 when things escalated exponentially, and it has been pervasive ever since then. So we're going to keep an eye on that and kind of see where that ends up. I don't know for sure if we're looking at something that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks or if it's going to be a month or two out yet. But I really do anticipate that we are going to start to see something really emerge from the touching of the tips, if you will, in this cauldroning around Pokrovsk. And now, as this is happening, we're starting to see more movement up and down the line, and we're starting to see some inroads kind of in and around near the Pokrovsk area and in a few other areas. So I think what it's starting to signal is they're going to start really gearing up to take a few bigger areas and start making a few more pushes, the Russians. And I think it's one of those situations to where Ukraine's really got to try and figure out what it is that they want to do next. Right now, so far, the Russians have made some really steady advances. And, a lot of people might look and say, oh, well, it's not really that significant. It's not really... They're not taking a bunch of ground. They're not doing this, but it's the steadiness that I would urge people to pay attention to, because if you look at the way that they've been fighting and you look at the way that they've been moving this front, it wasn't about this rapid movement of the front. What I think that you've seen for quite some time is they're waging a very highly attrition driven war, and due to the slower somewhat sense of progression, for the most part, especially with the pushing during the summer and the slower pacing in regards to taking the land and pushing that line forward. What you're not really seeing, and what I haven't really seen, is you're not having these, these micro fights or these pop-up conflicts behind the Russian line. It's not something that you're really seeing. So they're being very thorough. They're making sure that every place that they go through, they're able to essentially clear it and make sure that it's entirely captured, and then they move the line forward slowly but surely. And they can do this with great effectiveness. They have the ability in the air. They have the ability with the drones. They have the artillery superiority, and they also have the men capable of being able to continue this sense of progression in this high rate of attrition that they've had for quite some time. And so I think that's something that's very noteworthy. Something else that is very noteworthy as well is there have been some rumblings both within our own government and within our own defense department, as well as rumblings that have come from NATO, that stockpiles are very, very low, to the point to where what it would take for us in 1 year to produce essentially a somewhat replenished amount is just not something that's even really feasible right now. I mean, to be able to crank out the amount of 155 artillery shells that we would need to kind of even remotely be in a sense of where we're somewhat replenished is just something that's not even really that feasible. We don't have the ability to do this right now, notwithstanding the amount of Patriot missiles. And yet we continue to outsource all of these types of supplies, notwithstanding the 155s, the Patriot missiles, and many other types of munitions and armaments that are included in this grand scope. But we can't necessarily do it for ourselves, but yet that's not stopping us from giving all of these things out to other countries, i.e. Ukraine and Israel. And we did see kind of this confliction of ideals or perceptions, if you will, even between like Hegseth and then you had Trump, and then you had somebody that was working for Hegseth, like, no, we can't send these things because we're low. And then they're saying, oh, no, we're fine. And I think the picture that's being painted essentially in the one that's really coming to fruition is something that even had been suggested almost about a year ago. And I wish I could remember the guy. I wish I could remember who exactly it was. He was kind of, he was one of our top guys from NATO, and he had even come out and said, I'll see if I can find the article I'm thinking of, or the guy that I'm thinking of. But essentially, he had said that the rate at which supplies are being used in the sense of attrition is far exceeding our ability to manufacture and to match the output at which it's being used. And that was pertaining specifically more to Ukraine. But in the end of the day, it was draining and depleting our stockpiles so quickly that it was presenting a near, a pretty present danger for our own ability to defend ourselves. And that was almost a year ago now. And now we're at a situation to where this is something that's being talked about again. And I think that it is presenting a situation that we really have to kind of pay attention to it. We can't continue to outsource all of these armaments, all of this ammunition, all of this stuff, if it's going to put us in a position that is going to be detrimental. And when you look at the rate of attrition that is being imposed as it pertains to Ukraine, and you also look at some of the, I believe, let me go back real quick. You've had Daniel Davis, and you've had Douglas McGregor, and you've had several other people that have also hinted at the supply shortages. But then they've also compared and contrasted as to what the Russians are being able to supply. And even in 1 year's time, what the United States, it was either the United States or what NATO was able to produce, the Russians are able to do that in just a matter of months versus the time frame of a year. So their ability to produce, manufacture, and exponentially put forth the arms, armaments, and the required ammunition that is needed to sustain a high attrition type of warfare is far greater than us and far greater than most of NATO. And that's, if not NATO in general. And when I say that, there's also been a long list of, or I should say there's been a lot of implications, I should say, is rather what I'm trying to hint at, of that Germany's stockpiles are very low. Britain's stockpiles are very low. You have France that's getting very down there. You have so many of these other countries whose stockpiles are so depleted, and that's not even starting to get into the manpower shortages. That's not starting even to get into the recruiting efforts. That's not even starting to hint at some of the most basic things, and these countries can't bring it to bear. They're simply just being outproduced, and so are we. And so this is something that I think is, we need to step back, and we've really got to rationally evaluate where our stockpiles are. And we have to really take a concerted effort in, are we going to invest in defending ourselves, or are we going to continue to try and be the police of the world, defend other people, and get ourselves involved in conflicts we don't need to be involved in, much to our own demise. So that is something that I really, really wanted to impress upon everybody. And there's a couple of different sources, or a couple different websites that you guys can take a look at. They have updates and they have better figures on this than what I'm able to provide right now. But I would highly encourage people to take a look at that. And Daniel Davis does a really, really good show, the Daniel Davis Deep Dive, where he also has more military-centric experts that get more into the nitty-gritty of what some of those numbers actually look like. Highly recommend you go check out his podcast for a lot more of that numerical type of information. I'm simply just trying to convey to you some of the problems that we are facing right now. And I'm here to tell you it's not good. It is not good at all. I'm going to take a moment here and go through the chat before I press on. Centerline Systems, appreciate you being here, brother. Learn me something. Great to have you in here. It's going to get worse before it gets worse. Yeah, I mean, isn't that pretty much the case, man? Turning in from the rotten apple. Well, learn me something. I'm here to tell you, I am happy to have you here, man. Stay safe. Tuning in from Somali Soda. Well, I mean, I suppose that somewhat makes two of us, from the same place. Somali Soda nailed it, FYI. It was said used first here. Hey, you know what? There's a first time for everything. And we are sending a few more Patriot Systems and Defense folks news talking about how long it will take for us to replace. Dude, we are... that's what I'm trying to say, is like we in a good production run, we maybe can replace. I think it was Douglas McGregor that had talked about, or it might have been Daniel Davis who had mentioned that on a really good production run, we might be able to manufacture between 15 to 20 Patriot I think systems is what it was, because they're not cheap, right? Like when you look at the missiles that they use, I think the missiles are somewhere around like $200 or $2 million per missile. So not only is it expensive to produce, but you're talking about the system in and of itself, and that just adds on one more layer of that production run, right? So when you look at the production run and you look at the amount of money that goes into it and the amount of effort and the time and all of these different things, all of these factors, we have systems that are sophisticated, but at the same time are not something that is in a situation right now to where it can be mass produced on scale. That's even going to make up for the amount of expenditure that we've put out. And as such, I mean, our stockpiles are very low. Europe stockpiles are very low, but yet they're trying to also get Europe, Germany, Britain, Germany in particular, I think, is looking at sending over some of their own Patriot batteries, which I think they have like somewhere around like 17 left, and they're looking at maybe giving away like 14 of them. I could be wrong on that. I'd have to double check that, but I think that's somewhere around where it was supposed to be. And if that's the case, I mean, when you look at that production cycle, you're not going to replace that in a short amount of time. There's no shot. And so this creates a huge, huge issue. And, something going back to the 155 shells that are used in artillery pieces, I mean, we simply can't produce enough. We simply can't produce enough right now to scale to even begin to replenish the depleted stocks that we have. It would take us, I think it was McGregor that said it would take us a year of full-on production to get us to a position to where we're not completely replenished, but to where we're at least in a position to where we would have enough for a little while, and that's very problematic. So, I think when we evaluate, especially the Russia-Ukraine thing, and you look at the way that we've been going about this, and unfortunately, the negotiations on our side just really have not been fruitful. There's not much that's really occurring that's honestly in the net positive right now. I think we really have to step back and evaluate, not just in Russia-Ukraine, but also as it pertains to Israel. What are we doing to ourselves defensively? And is it something that we, one, should be doing, but also, two, can we even sustain it? And I would argue we are in a situation right now to where our stocks are depleted enough, as with many other people that are far better on the subject than I am, that we cannot afford to do this. We cannot afford to sustain the supplies to other countries because we are in a position of severe disadvantage. And so I think this is something we really, really have to evaluate. Now, that being said, there is something. There's an article. I have to look at it on my phone. I'm not able to pull it up, unfortunately, on my other screen. But for those of you that were not aware, recently, earlier in the month, the United States Air Force transferred B-61-12 tactical nuclear bombs from Kirkland Air Force Base to the RAF Lakenheath, marking their first deployment in the UK since 2008. So we have transferred tactical nuclear weapons from one Air Force base, our Air Force Base, over to the Air Force Base in Britain at Lakenheath, and we haven't done this since 2008. Now, make of that what you will. I'm not trying to be alarmist, but at the current juncture with how things are right now, I don't know necessarily that that's the move that I'd want to do. And there was polling recently that had suggested that it was like 61% of Britons really were not keen to the idea. They were not warm to the idea of having U.S. nuclear weapons brought in and stationed at a place like Lakenheath. And so we really have to start looking at what these types of moves also signify too. And we have to consider, like, is this worth it? Is this worth the, what the perception might be? And is it something that we really want to be doing? Is it something that we need to do? Again, I would argue, no, it's not something we should be doing. It's not something we should be even transferring, in my humble opinion. But this is just one of those things to where it's just one step more towards provocation when we're trying to deal with Russia and we're trying to deal with the situation in Ukraine. We also have to consider how that looks. And I don't think we're doing ourselves any favors by doing things like this. And so it just really opens up a big door to a lot of other potential issues down the road that I really don't think we should be having to deal with. Now, on a final note, on the weapons front, and I'm kind of melding some of these subjects together, so I do apologize, because this is kind of an administration thing mixed in with the Russia-Ukraine thing. But I want to just bring your attention over here real quick. And so this is on antiwar.com, and it's essentially says Trump. Let me give credit where credit is due. This is written by Dave DeCamp at antiwar.com. He is a really fantastic writer. If you haven't been on antiwar.com, I highly recommend checking out some of their pieces and some of the writers there. As some of you might know, Scott Horton is the editorial director over at antiwar.com. And so I really tend to use them as sources of information simply because I feel that they have a much higher degree of accuracy and honesty as it pertains to their reporting. And I also really like to use Ground News because Ground News also helps you filter through the stories and help you find a mix match that creates a much fuller picture as well. So here at antiwar.com, we have the headline by Dave DeCamp. Trump launched nearly as many airstrikes in 5 months as Biden did in 4 years. President Trump launched nearly as many airstrikes in his first 5 months in office as President Biden did during his entire 4-year term, the Telegraph reported last week, citing figures from the armed conflict location and event data. The ACLAD found that Trump oversaw 529 airstrikes compared with 555 launched during President Biden's term. The majority of Trump's airstrikes, 470, have been launched in Yemen, where the Trump administration has carried out a very heavy bombing campaign from March 15th to May 6th that killed more than 250 civilians. Obviously you can kind of get the gist of what the article is. If you want to see the further article, what I will do is I can link that article in the description below, so that way you guys can take a look at that. But that's astonishing. I mean, that is something to me in 5 months. And this is a man, and the reason I bring this up is because this is an individual as well as an administration that went in and talked all about being anti-war. We're not going to war. We're not creating new war. We're not getting involved in wars. Well, every single one of those airstrikes is an act of war. That is simply what it is. And it's not my definition. It is the definition that our founders provided us. And it is the one that we were founded upon. A simple act of aggression from one nation, one sovereign onto another and or an individual is enough to constitute an act of war. And so when we look at this, that is a lot. And it's not simply just Yemen. It's in Somalia. It's in so many other places, including Iran and within Syria and again, so many other places. We have conducted acts of war upon so many other people. And there is, it's like, at what point, where does it end? Where does it end? The expenditure that we have seen that is talked about here is insane. It's absolutely insane. So, we really, again, we have to step back and we really have to kind of evaluate, what the hell is going on? I mean, it's, in like Centerline Systems just brought up, folks voted for him on the No War platform, not the I'm trying to out-bomb Obama. I mean, whether it's Obama or Biden, I mean, it's such a substantial amount. And look, people don't want it. This stuff is not popular. People don't want war anymore. They're sick of war. They don't want to be involved in other people's conflicts, especially when you parade yourself and you talk about being so America first, and yet you're constantly pursuing policies that are really injurious and inherently America last. It's anti-American to its core, and that's just the bottom line of it. Don't take my word for it. Look back and see what the founders thought about it. And I don't know, maybe perhaps you might think they're anti-American, but I'm going to go with the wisdom of the founders and the many people that came before us, because I tend to think that their disposition is a little bit better, if not a lot better, than where we currently sit now. So that's something I just had to bring up, because to me, like, that is astonishing. And and it had been said several times. I know Dave Smith has brought it up, as well as on Judge Napolitano and several of the guests that they have interacted with recently in the last few weeks. And I am inclined to agree with this very much. And I believe Scott Horton brought this up as well. For all intents and purposes, Ukraine has become Trump's war. He can't distance himself and say it's not his war anymore. He's still continuing the funding, the aid. He's still continuing all of these different things. And really, I mean, we haven't seen, again, anything substantial in order to either de-escalate in any earnest or honest disposition, as we've started to see, to de-escalate this situation in Ukraine. Now, all of that being said, I want to pivot real quick, because I feel like it really merits at least some time, and I think it's important. And again, there's a number of different articles by those on antiwar.com as well as on Ground News that cover this. But when we evaluate the involvement in war and we look at the subsidizing of behavior and we look at the funding of different countries, one of the most egregious and reprehensible examples of this, not just as it pertains to Ukraine, but also I would point your attention to Gaza. There is a situation as it pertains to Gaza, again, where I think there was just another headline about 79 people were civilians were killed by the Israeli military. You're seeing an increase of starvation deaths, and I'm talking about. I'm not talking about just people succumbing necessarily to disease, but you're seeing people that are literally emaciated. These people are literally emaciated. They've had no food. You're having children that are literally skeletons with skin on it. And this is unfortunately, whether you agree with me or not, don't take my word for it. Go out there and evaluate this. There's enough data points over the last few years to show what has led up to this. But you're seeing people that are dying from starvation, so emaciated that all you see is their bones, essentially, just through their skin. There's nothing to these people. And when these people go to these aid centers over in Gaza, the only thing that they seem to be met with, especially recently, is gunfire. And you've had numerous soldiers from the IDF, and you've had video that's captured, and you've had on-the-ground reports that have shown or have come forward pertaining to the IDF shooting people or using these aid areas as a way to bring these people in and then fucking slaughter them. And you're going to have people that are going to sit here and say, oh, well, they're still fighting a defensive war. There's nothing defensive when you're shooting fucking emaciated people. That's all I'm going to say about it. I don't care what your disposition is. You're not going to sit there and convince me that these people are combatives. And when you have testimony of IDF soldiers and you have on camera American contractors that are laughing and joking about just shooting somebody that came for some food, it's the most reprehensible and abhorrent shit that you can possibly see. And, unfortunately, the American taxpayer subsidizes this stuff. And I don't want my money subsidizing what's going on in Gaza. I don't want my money subsidizing what's going on in Ukraine. It's reprehensible, and it is some of the most vile, criminal, and evil shit you'll ever see. What you're seeing taking place in Gaza. It is absolutely reprehensible, and you'll still have people that will talk about these individuals that are coming to these aid stations as subhuman, worthless individuals, not worthy of life itself. And this is some of the rhetoric that is put out there. Think of where you have to be mentally to say that about somebody like that who just wants some food. And yet, what's amazing to me is that there is such a double standard. There is a double standard at what is occurring. There is such a double standard at what is taking place in a place like Gaza, and when it comes to the IDF, and when it comes to the Israeli administration's care and concern for any of these people, that if it had been anybody else, any other country, we would have bombed the shit out of that country for the argument that is a humanitarian crisis, but people stay quiet and they just openly acknowledge the fact that they're setting up concentration camps for these people, and you have people that look away. And then you want to have individuals that will sit there and talk all day long about Auschwitz or the Holocaust or anything like that, and then we're just supposed to ignore this. It is absolutely fucking reprehensible. It's I don't understand how it is that people can acknowledge this. And you know what the crazy thing is just for simply looking at something like this and seeing it for what it is, you will have people that will say, oh, you're a terrorist lover, you're a Hamas supporter, whatever. This has nothing. In the end of the day, Hamas is terrible. Don't get me wrong. Hamas is an organization of people that are very ideologically driven. There's no scruples. There's nothing more about that can be said. They are what they are. Yes, they are reprehensible also. But when it comes to Israel and it comes to the IDF, there is a standard that is expected of people that we call our allies, and they fuck over every single one of those standards. Like I said, any other country was doing this, we would have bombed the shit out of them and leveled every one of their cities for the sake of humanitarian crisis. And yet we don't hold that same standard. We don't even pull funding. We don't do anything. And I don't think we should be funding another country militarily. We shouldn't be funding another country in any way, subsidizing a country in any way. That's not our job. The United States government's job, the job that we give them the authority for, is to take care of us and to help us and to support us. And when they screw up, it is our job to tell them how they're supposed to conduct themselves. It is our job to tell them what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do, to enforce the Constitution, to do all these things. But that is not the way it is. And we've seen this double standard that has occurred time and time and time and again, as it pertains to speech, as it pertains to the ability to ban or to choose to not send items. You tell me where there isn't a double standard. You tell me where Americans are put first in the last few months, and explain it in a way to where you don't have to fucking circle around and try and make up some BS excuse. This is not an American first administration. I'm here to tell you. I don't know who needs to hear this, but it's not an American first administration. So, this is the situation that we're in right now. And pardon my language, I do apologize for the foul language and the vulgar language. But look, I mean, this is a serious situation. And so we can't sit here and just act like it's not, like these things aren't taking place. It's not our job to prop up a country. It's not our job to subsidize a country. And it damn well is not our job to subsidize bad behavior and then turn around and tell somebody else, oh, you can't do that, when we don't even hold the people that are supposed to be our allies responsible for the reprehensible shit that they do. Because who's going to believe us? Where is our credibility? We have none. We have none. There's none. None at all. And that's notwithstanding even some of the domestic issues that we've had recently. And now I want to kind of segue into that and into the administration even more. We've now seen this shift, if you will, of not only is it not denying any information or even a remote, conversation, if you will, about Epstein. It's just, we're not paying attention to this anymore, and we're going to go to the Russian collusion thing, which, don't get me wrong, in its own way, in its own right, to be completely honest with you, is something that we do need to talk about. People do need to be held responsible, but there's a process in which we go about doing these things. There is a way in which we go about doing these things. But in no way should this be used to just mull over the Epstein thing. I am not going to let the Epstein thing go, and many other people aren't either. There are answers that are required. There are questions that need to be answered for. There are things that need to be answered for. And I'm here to tell you, this administration has been going up, down, over the river, through the woods to do everything they can to avoid even having to talk about the Epstein issue. And they have gone over the river and through the woods to try and shift the dynamic of that conversation, the flow of that conversation into something else. Yes, the Russian collusion thing is important. Yes, we need to find the people responsible, but that does not give them the right to sit here and ignore and shift this whole dynamic in this conversation of the Epstein situation away from it. You don't get to do that. Much in the same way that you don't get to sit here and gaslight people about Ukraine, about what's happening in Gaza, about the what's going on with Israel, and so many other things. You don't get away with this and act like nothing ever happened. You don't get to escape the questions. It might just be me in the end of the day and hammering away at these questions, but I will do this. That is part of the reason I started this, because we need to have these conversations and we need to have accountability. And I'm happy to say that I'm probably not the only person that's doing this. There's many other people that are asking a lot of the same things and bringing light to the same situations, but we have to stay on top of this. These people cannot be allowed to skate by on so many of these different things. There's, when I look at what this sets tone-wise for the future, especially when you look at what Thomas Massey's trying to do and what he's introduced, isn't it weird what he's trying to do in as it pertains to Epstein, that they just happened. Speaker Johnson just decided on the 6th day what he's trying to do requires 7 days to really push it forward and to push it through. Isn't it crazy how Speaker Mike Johnson decides we're going to take vacation before they actually have to be held responsible to do something as it pertains to Epstein? This would force them to do something. And he's like, nope, we're just going to take our vacation, our yearly vacation during this time. Speaks for itself, dude. I mean, between that, Pamela Bruce, saying what she says about us as it pertains to, basically us being second best, when she's supposed to be a representative for the American people. You look at the pandering that's going on. You look at all of this verbal diarrhea that comes from the administration, and don't even get me started on some of the most ridiculous rhetoric and posts I've seen. I peruse X every once in a while, and I'm here to tell you the stuff that I have seen in the past month coming out of the White House is some of the most ridiculous grade school, just gaslighting, communication rhetoric that I've ever seen in my entire life. These people literally are trying to convince you that everything is fine. And I'm here to tell you, when somebody's trying this hard to tell you how great something is, it's probably not. So we are in a serious hurt locker right now. And there's a lot of things that really need to be evaluated. And there's a lot of things that we really have to step back and look at and bring some honesty into the situation about if we're going to move forward in a good concerted effort. And I will always have a sense of hope, but we've got to be able to put this pressure on. Now, one of the things that, as it pertains to the Epstein thing and what Thomas Massey is trying to do, if you get know who your representative is for your state, get on the phone, tell them to support this, so that way Congress so that way I should say these people will have to be forced to do something, to bring forth information about this. Get on the phone, tell your representative that they either need to co-sign it or they need to support what Massey is currently trying to do. you are incremental in making this process work. It does not work without you. And so if you sit around and you expect something to occur without you trying to do something about it and without being part of that integral core, it's not going to happen. You have to be involved. That was always the expectations. You have to be involved. It's the same thing as it pertains to war, and as it pertains to the people that get sent to war. One of the best movements that I've seen where you guys can definitely make a difference is Defend the Guard. You put your weight behind that. You get behind Defend the Guard, and you make it to where the federal government has to adhere to the Constitution before they send our men and women into harm's way. And this gives the states so much more control back over their National Guard units that it is the truly constitutional and states' rights disposition that can be taken as it pertains to war and the preservation of our National Guard units, keeping them out of harm's way, away from unconstitutional and illegitimate wars. So that is another thing that I would tell, and I implore people 100%, put your weight behind it, get working on it in your states. If you don't know where to start, go to Defend the Guard. I think it's defendtheguard.com or .org. I will throw that down in the description below also. And so you guys can take a look at that. There's so many things that we can be involved in, that we can participate in, that we can be active in right now. And I would implore everybody to, even if it's one thing, just get out there and start doing it. Start being that voice and start getting involved, because it requires you for this stuff to work. So I just kind of want to wrap up a few things, and I will come to comments here as well. But look, like the Ukraine thing, we're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to see where things are. If there's any major updates, I will try to do an update either on my Instagram, and I think I can do posts on YouTube now as well. So I will try to do some updated posts on YouTube, and I think those should also ping the notifications the same way as videos. So you guys will have to let me know when I do a post or something like that. If you guys see this, if you see it, give me a thumbs up, write a comment below, whatever the case is. It'll help me kind of work my way into this algorithm. But I will try and do a post as I see that. And on Instagram, I will try and do my continuous posts as it pertains to the episodes, et cetera, et cetera. And also, I will attempt to also do some updates on my Instagram as well as it pertains to Gaza, the things that are going on between us and Iran, because now apparently Iran is starting to there's some tensions that are rising again with Iran. So I'll keep an eye on that. I didn't see anything necessarily that stuck out to me that I wanted to talk about on that today, but I will keep an eye on that as well. But also, we really have to just pay attention from I would argue from the very inception of this administration, but from this moment forward, we really have to be conscientious and really listen to what it is these people are saying, because I'm here to tell you, they are taking you for a ride. They're taking a lot of people for a ride, and it's in my humble opinion, it's a freaking clown show. And they want you to forget, and they want you to just trust the plan. They want you to have full faith and confidence. They don't want you to question the process whatsoever. And if you do question the process, they will just either ignore, deliberately deviate, or whatever the case is. These people need to be held responsible for their jobs. And they sit here and continue acting like they're doing the greatest job in the world. And it's just, it's absolute bluster. So don't be gaslit into that. These people need their feet held to the fire, and they need them vigorously held to the fire. So I'm going to jump over to some comments here real quick, and then I will wrap it up here. So learn me something, throwing out a big positive comment there, telling people to like. I really appreciate that. Don't apologize for the language. This is an adult show about adult topics. Yes, it is. We also live in an adult world where, I think some people, man, they really have an immature disposition at times. But you know, I will say I am trying to curb the language. I'm trying to not be as vulgar. So I'm working on it, but there's some conversations, some topics, man, that really just they get me because it's such a human thing. You know, they evoke so much empathy and they evoke so much pure pure passion and pure emotion. And I think that is okay sometimes. It's okay to have some passion and emotion for what it is that you're doing, especially when we're talking about topics like this. It's human, and I think if we just shut that down entirely, well, what are we going to get? You know, what is the outcome of that? And I would argue that it's not a good one. It's not a healthy one. So, but I really appreciate your support in the comments there. Learn me something. Ground fog, great to see you. You kind of came in near the end of it, but definitely, man, go back, look at the beginning of the video. I discussed a few other topics. Centerline, appreciate the thumbs up. Look, you know, it's one of those episodes to where I know I kind of rattled a few things off fairly quick succession, but there were a couple points that I felt were that had merit, that were worth bringing up. I do apologize. I couldn't remember necessarily the numerics on some things, but I will try to scan around and see if I can find some of the articles. I'm here to tell you, there's some articles that I've tried to look for as of recent, and man, are they? Does it really seem like there's a concerted effort to really bury things that tend to be inconvenient? Because there's some great articles out there, and it's really a shame, which is why I do like to use antiwar.com, because they are their own platform, and they archive, to my understanding, they archive all of their articles, all of their headlines, all of that stuff. And they do a really, really good job. So if you ever wanted to go and find something or whatever the case is, I highly, highly recommend that you go check them out. They have phenomenal writers. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with them all the time, but they have really, really good writers. So I really recommend that. I'm pretty sure I did put antiwar.com and what am I trying to think of? Give me 1 second. Ground News. I put both of them in the description down below. And so I'd highly recommend go check both of them out. See if you like Ground News. I think Ground News is really good. I subscribed for a couple. It was a couple dollars a year, but it helps you really kind of sift through and sort through a lot of news. So yeah, so that's all I got for this evening. I hope you guys and gals really kind of enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. Like I said, I will try and do the best I can to provide some updates about Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, Iran, when it seems reasonable. Another person I'm going to plug, especially for Russia, Ukraine, if that piques your guys' interest, is History Legends. I will put him, Alex, down in the description below too. I did find out that he is doing more updated videos, and in his videos, he actually does a really good job of showing you pictures and mapping of the front and what the different moves are there. So look out for that. So without further ado, thank you so much for coming in to another episode of the Sentinels of Liberty podcast. I am your host, Redbeard. And yeah, thank you for all of the support. Thank you for all of the views. And I hope to see you guys soon down the road, Saturday, actually, tuning into me and Scott Horton. We'll be going over potentially some of the same similar subjects, but I hope you guys enjoy that one. So without further ado, have a great rest of your evening, and we'll talk to you soon.